Hello there, and welcome to the Second Life Book Club. My name is Draxtor Dupre. As you can see, I'm here at the Green Shed. I hope that the camera has the sign in the frame here. The Green Shed is here in Second Life is a replica of a second-hand, or should I say, Second Life shop that is in Canberra, in Australia, where apparently our two guests volunteer. So we decided to make a replica for these illustrious, prolific writers that we have on the show today. And this is sort of the Second Life version of um, a secondhand store. We decided to look deep into our inventories and just res stuff out and put it in these shelves. Look at all these treasures. Here's a Bernie Sanders Linden bear. Here is a little fur ball uh, cat. Here are a whole bunch of VHS tapes. I should go slower because uh, so the camera can zoom over this. Don't fear. I'm not going to go through this entire thing here for the hour because we have amazing guests and we will meet them in a second. But I do have to show this here. There's a prim that says "Save the Prims." Okay, do you see that? And also right next to it here is a big Bloom doll avatar. These are limited edition Bloom doll avatars. I found this in my inventory. So these, I mean, this is a second-hand store. These stores where our guests work, and I will tie this into writing and reading, trust me. These stores, I personally find them absolutely magical. For example, here in the middle, on the middle desk are a whole bunch of books. I used to buy a lot of books in these stores. You will find book treasures in some of these stores. Look at that. Here is a old Draxtor head with a speech bubble above his head that says, "I'm busy, can't answer." Um, Apparently, this symbolizes me and what I do. Underneath is a sign that says, "Please don't feed prims." Right next to here are easy size adjustment feet. There's a Hollywood sign, a stagecoach. Just amazing. There are posters on the wall. There's a Login to Life poster. Oh, did I miss the Lab Gap logo over there? You know what? This is enough. Everybody can look around here as they please because this world will stick around. Let's go to my camping chair, pop open a cold one. No, I won't do that. Go to my camping chair and welcome my two guests here that are coming to us from Australia, Kat Sparks and Kaaron Warren. They've both been on the show before. Welcome back. It's been too long.
It
Kaaron?
has been quite a while.
It has. It's so good to be back, and this setting is just incredible. It's absolutely amazing, and you
I
can
don't
have a
think
Yeah,
beer
yeah.
if you want. It's a shed.
breakfast
You're allowed
beer.
to drink a beer. Yeah. Do you know what we found? So we'll get on to some of the things we found and all the rest of it, but one of the things we found not that long ago was a huge 50-year-old bottle of Grand Marnier,
What, in the green
almost
shed
full,
in the second-hand store?
in the green shed in the secondhand store. And that, of course, they can't sell alcohol.
Hmm.
So
S-
you can guess if we tipped it down the sink or we sampled
Yes,
it.
have a guess. What do you think?
I'll leave that up to
What
You
do you
took
think
it
editorial
we
home.
did?
I know what you did.
What do you think we did?
You went in there with a winter coat and hid it in that winter coat, and then smuggled
No
it out.
need. No need for smuggling. Not in our
No, no,
fabulous
no,
workplace.
no. Our fabulous workshop, the boss said, "Go and
You
get
you
some glass bottles, and we'll dole it out." And we all took a little bit home of this amazing 50-year-old. I was a bit concerned, I must say, that I thought we would empty out the bottle and down the bottom there would be like a human finger or something. I was a bit worried that
Mhm.
that would be the case, but it wasn't. It's
But I
okay.
don't think it would have
It was
stopped us
delicious, wasn't it?
either. It was delicious. Yes, I've had some already.
I don't think so.
I would have gone with the
Yes.
finger.
Now, There are certain stereotypes about Australians that I grew up with, having been born and raised in Munich, Germany, with the Oktoberfest and all that kind of stuff. And these stereotypes around Australians have to do with drinking. Now, I assured the book club community that I would invite you to for a lively book discussion. And lo and behold, we're about 5 minutes in, and we're talking about booze. Now, this is not my fault. I just want to, for the record,
Well,
and people can
we
rewind the tape, look at the
well, we could we
tapes.
there are so many things in the
Well,
shop we could talk about. Like that's just that was a recent treasure. But there are always treasures.
yes.
This does fascinate me. So this is a volunteer gig that you guys have, or
No, no, not at all. It's an actual job.
wow? But I thought you guys make, I don't know, millions and
Yes.
millions of dollars as writers. No,
Oh, well, obviously, yes,
Well,
yes.
this is just to fun. Yes, this is just to well, basically, yes. Now, look, I think it's a really nice question, Charlotte. Do you want do we answer the questions as they come in, Drax, or
from
do you
the
want to
local
wait till
chat,
the
you can
end? What
pick
do
up
you
anything from the
what
local
normally
chat as
happens?
you like. Absolutely.
Okay. All right, because Charlotte just asked a question about does working together affect our writing and what we're writing about? And I think that's really interesting because there's a lot of everyone's quite creative in the shop. Kat and I are writers there, but there's a couple of artists, and we all are definitely influenced in different ways by the things that come in and by the people that come in. So Kat and I don't think have ever fought our way to fisticuffs over an item or a person that we want to write about yet. But I think it
No.
definitely does seep in different ways. I think it's really interesting, that question. But yeah, it
That
certainly
is a
seeps
super
in
interesting
different
question.
ways, but we've never actually fought over.
Well, look,
Oops, I'm not sure if Karen can hear me.
the only fighting that's ever likely to take place is not will not be between me and Karen. It will be between me and Robin, the master ceramicist who also works there. We both like mid-century modern and orange plastic. So one day a beautiful orange piece of orange plastic will come in like a vase or an ashtray or something, and we will both leap on it and there will be violence. There will be.
So we're talking about this is really
There
interesting.
will.
Karen was and let's go deep here. Karen was talking about, I think, if interesting people that she observes, I think this was where Charlotte's question may have gone, if there's people who are potentially interesting to write about or spark a idea for a character in a story or a novel, and Kat jumps into mid-century modern furniture that she snaps up. So
That's just how I roll, I mean, that's how my brain works. But look,
you have
there
enough
are so
characters in
many.
your head. You don't need
There
inspiration from the people who
there are
shop at the Green Shed.
so many interesting people in and out of that shop and so many interesting objects. I think it's exactly in the same way if you've ever been in a writing group and um, the topic comes like you pick a topic and you all write about it and you never get two stories even remotely the same. I think it's
Mhm,
the same situation in the shop, which is that there are so many interesting people and things to go around. And Karen and I have we both love objects and kooky objects, but different objects and in different ways. So,
mhm.
I don't think we're gonna be pinching each other's material.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about. No, sorry, Karen, go ahead.
No, but I do think some of the people may show up.
Yes,
Some of the people may show up, but certainly in different
in
ways.
different
It's really
ways.
about the observations. Like you have time, I guess, to observe people as they come through, and you're always making assumptions about relationships and all that sort of thing. So yeah, it's an interesting people study.
Yeah,
So when
we have different favorites.
I think.
Like, I bags Arthur.
when people come
Oh,
in,
Arthur.
do
So Arthur is this. No, what it and it,
oops, I think we have a substantial delay. So I'm gonna step
yeah,
back
go
a
on.
little bit. I was gonna ask if you can give me an example, if somebody comes in, how does the process work? Somebody looks interesting or looks at interesting things, or maybe buys something that he found or interacts with you in a certain way. And I think Karen, you were just about to say that then inspiration or imagination fills in, I guess, a kind of a backstory. Is that how it works? I mean, this reminds me of a game that we used to play in high school. We were sitting at a cafe
Yeah.
and just watching people walk by. I think it's a very common thing, and we would make up stuff about these people, like entire long backstories, who that person is. Yeah, you know what? That person has a peanut allergy, but her mother
Yes.
was forcing her peanut sandwiches. I don't know, stuff like whatever. Is that kind of how the shed is a place
No,
for inspiration? No?
these people tell you everything.
Oh, they tell you that. Oh, see, then you just have to sort of write it down and then you
That's
got your
true.
book.
Or the way they move through the space is so individual that you can't. Well, for example, we just mentioned someone called Arthur. Now we know this guy's name. He's an elderly gentleman who is blind, pretty much blind and deaf, but that is not stopping him moving out in the world.
Mhm,
And I'm not sure he is aware of being blind and deaf. He just moves through in his own space and shouts. And he's really interested in not in nautical
He
stuff. So
does.
like he stumbles into the shop, knocks something over, barks orders at Karen to pick up all the chess pieces. He's just like poking with his walking stick, pointing at them, then
mhm,
barges his way around the shop, picking up things, trying to find and a leaf.
At a
I think
leaf. He
he
was
didn't know. I
pointing
think
at
he
a
probably thought
leaf.
it was a chess
Yes.
piece. But like
Yes.
he gets all these, he'll get like pictures of a ship or a model of a ship, and then he might want to tell you about it. So he's oblivious to everyone and everything else around. He is just going to shout at you and draw you a diagram and all of that. Somehow pay for his purchase and then go off back out into the world. And it's like, where does he live? How's he going to get home? Like,
mhm.
there's he just moves through the space, and we know his name's Arthur. I think because I don't know how we even know that actually, but he's got a big A painted in white on his wallet.
Mhm.
So I mean, I love him. He's hilarious, and he
I
somehow reminds me of my dad, even though he's not
He's
like
very
my dad.
funny. But we don't know. So he comes in.
Karen,
Go
go
on.
ahead, yeah.
He dresses like we don't know if he was ever a sailor or not. So he comes in, he literally dresses in the absolutely trademark variation of a sailor. So he's got the stripy top, he's got the cap, he's got the brown shorts, he's got like the boating shoes on. But we've got no idea if he's ever been on the water or not, or if he's just completely obsessed with what sails on
Yeah.
the water or what goes on the water. So it's that kind of thing, like whether or not Arthur will ever make his way into it. But he could easily be a completely deluded person who has
I
lived in a
think Arthur
fantasy
is
world of
already in a
sailing all of
story
his
of
life.
yours because I just read your novella Into Bones Like Oil. I think there are several Arthurs in that book, actually. It's right here on the table. But this is fascinating. But wait
Yes,
a minute, you just said that
yes,
these people tell you everything. So I was assuming that a lot of people, and you find it. I mean, when you also sort of signal that you're open to people sharing their life story. I guess I have that too when I walk with my dog in the park. Every day there's at least two, if not five people who will tell me their life story. Um, for whatever the reason.
yes.
So is that what happened? It's weird that that obviously doesn't happen with this Arthur person, but you said, or what I'm hearing is that this happens more often than not with repeat customers. I guess they're in there and they see you and they start talking about their lives.
Oh yeah. There's some of them
No,
you would like them
absolutely.
to talk
Yes,
less about their lives.
You are
Um,
some weird writers. I would go like, "Hey, this is
yes.
cool. Tell me
no,
more."
no. Look, this shop is really busy. It is so busy.
Oh no, mostly we do. It's only every now and then.
But
Yes.
imagine this, like this is a very strange shop.
It,
It's the only shop that I've ever heard of where we have to lock the door before we open to stop people trying to get in early, and we have
Mhm.
to throw them out at the end of the day. Like
Hmm.
people are just they love this shop. They love all the
uh,
gear, and it's very busy. And we're just trying to wrap things and sell them, and so fast, and we don't have time to chat sometimes.
Which is a
which
shame.
is a
So no,
shame.
Drax, I think you're exactly right. Like I certainly, my mother has always been that way. My dad jokes that she could stand in the queue at the shop and she would know the person's life story who stands in front of her, which I think is me as well. And it's Kat and it's you and it's a lot of people. I think we have things like a woman will come in wanting to donate her jewelry
Mhm.
or to perhaps buy a new piece of jewelry, and you'll find out everything about the husband's affair and how long it was going on for and all that sort of stuff. So sometimes, that's more than one woman, probably mid 40s, who's come in and has just spent $200 because she's got a new place and she wants to actually make it her own, as opposed to her husband's place.
So
And so part of what we do is, go, yeah, you go, girl, or whatever.
and this
But
again, this comes
alternatively,
not
that I
like, I
had a
mean,
man
you're
who
not
came in and
probing
bought a
them.
whole golf set.
Oops. Sorry, we have.
No, no, no. She's telling us everything. I had a man coming in and buy a whole golf set, a golf club set, and he said it's because his wife had kicked him out. Now I was only getting his point of view, obviously, for this time, so God knows what happened. But he'd been thrown out of home, and the stress of going back to get his golf clubs was so strong that he just couldn't cope. He bought himself a new set, secondhand, and you could see the tension leaving him. He had his golf clubs. It was okay.
This is amazing. So this
It's
is also, I mean, this is, I threw up some pictures here in the background. Maybe the camera can go on it. There is, Shyla put these together from the Green Shed, I guess, website,
nice.
and some pictures. Here's a really nice set of cups and saucers, and here's a little art piece, a little man that is made out of I guess some wire and some rusty materials, some assemblage, I think that's called. Um,
So we probably should mention at this
Something
point
like that.
that there are the Green Shed has several sites. So the
mhm,
ones that the actual shed sites that we work in one that is a shop. It's not the actual shed. The shed is where stuff gets donated and unloaded and sorted. So our one is where all the little objects end up. It's just
mhm,
more like a regular secondhand shop. And so people come in and browse around. It's on a section of Canberra's CBD called Garema Place. So there's other shops, etc., organised around a community space. So there's a little stage and giant chess set and stuff like that. And there's often stuff going on outside. There are a lot
mhm.
of people hang out in Garema Place for lots of reasons, and some we have. So yeah, that's the footage of the picture of the actual sorting shed up there you've got
There's
now. But
so many books.
we
This is
there
unbelievable
are
how
so
many
many
books there are.
books, but there's also an underground shop where
Yes.
clothes and
So I
stuff. Yep. And I was just going to say we have people, w-
yes. No, it's
people who we have a range of people coming in. So we have people in suits, business people buying stuff because they like stuff. We have people who are living rough, who come
Mhm,
in too, and just people with mental health issues sometimes, and just all different, and people who collect stuff, obsessive collectors
mm.
who like and different people who collect different things, like the guy who's always looking
yes.
for old tools or you name it, some people are collecting it and they're looking for more of those of their
I mean, if
favorite
I would
things.
be working there, I would just be talking to people. I would find it really so fascinating, and I mean, I find these places so fascinating. And as you're laying out, Kat, like people from all walks of life go to these places. It's not only people who are having issues with staying afloat, and they need to go to a shop where there are reasonable prices. There used to be a place where I live called Last Chance Mercantile, which was next to the city dump actually, but it was really nicely done. And but there were mainly people who would buy like bicycles for kids, and people who just didn't have the money to buy more expensive things. But as you said, I mean, it runs the whole socioeconomic spectrum, I guess.
But we get beautiful things in the shop. I would never go and buy, if I wanted to buy, say, a set of glasses, wine glasses, there's no way I would go anywhere other than this shop to buy them because everything's so unique and stunning and special. It's changed the way I shop, and it may has turned me into a shopper. I wasn't particularly interested in shopping till I started working there, and now I'm lucky to get out of there with my wage.
If you're just tuning in, this is the Second Life Book Club,
It's
but now we're
true.
talking
It's
about
true.
shopping. We're done with books, reading. It's boring. It's a waste of time.
We are.
We want to shop, and and since we're completely addicted to shopping, but we're also environmentalists.
Well, we get the most amazing
Yeah.
books in,
Yes,
Drax. We we get the most incredible books in. Now, so one we got in not that long ago was published
What?
1792. 1792 was
Who
the
even
edition of
gets
this
rid of
book,
books like
and I
that?
think it was actually a
Hmm.
German author. Sturm is the author's name, and it was called. I actually wrote it down because it's such an amazing book. Reflections on the works of God in nature and providence for every day of the year. And the author was Sturm, and it was translated by a woman into English. A woman, like she wasn't named, but every day it was like an early version of science meeting religion. It was just incredible.
it's fabulous.
1792 that book was published, and we had that in our shop because somebody had got rid of it.
This is
Incredible.
by Christoph Christian Sturm, Reflections on the Works of God in Nature and Providence for Every Day in the Year, Volume 1. This is amazing. Okay, from now on,
Yep.
you just screenshot that
Yes.
stuff and then text me, and then you send me a quote and I'll PayPal you, and then you buy it for me. You have it shipped over. This is amazing.
See, Drax, that way lies
Oh
madness.
yeah,
Believe me,
beautiful.
like
It's
so the other thing that I'm very attracted to in the shop is, of course, photographing a lot of the kooky stuff, as
Hmm.
photography is one of my interests. And I have become obsessed with creepy dolls. Again, before worked in that shop, I wasn't particularly interested in dolls, and now I have a garage full of broken creepy dolls because the bits of their arms and head and stuff, because stuff that can't sell, because it's broken or whatever. Well, maybe that'll go back to the shed, or maybe it'll be $1. And if it's $1, I'm getting it, and I'm going to do some horrible photography with it. And so I now have horrible,
Oh.
horrible things in my shed, which is my art space. And I can't get away from these dolls. And I photograph these nasty things and I put them on Facebook, and all my friends go, "Ew, stop it. No, no, we want more bird pictures, no more creepy dolls." But I can't stop.
We have a person here, Little Brett from Norway. She loves dolls. She has a creepy doll house here in Second Life. This is she's
Oh.
probably um, listening quite intently now.
Yes,
wow.
well, look, you don't just look at them, they look back at you and their eyes follow you around the shop.
It's amazing. It's really an amazing. It's
It's so
just an
true.
amazing trigger for creativity. One last question before we move on a little bit is when I was talking with Shiloh in the pre-production, I was wondering, actually, I think she came up with this question. Do you guys use your downtime? But actually, I think you just indicated that it's pretty busy during the times that you work there. But I wonder if there's like a water cooler situation in that space where you probe each other about what you're working on, writing wise, or if you ever talk about that.
We would rather than that, 'cause oh, we totally do. But rather than sort of do it during working hours, we'll go for a drink or a bite to eat afterwards and have a download and talk about all that sort of thing afterwards. More so than in the
Yeah, but the
shop.
shop is
But we
busy.
definitely are inspired by it.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
but we do well. So we do have something that we have talked so much, Kat and I. Like we've known each other for what nearly 20 years.
Yeah.
Which is a long time by any stretch of the imagination, and have always written very different things. But just recently, we had shared a couple of new stories with each other and realized that somehow we were almost writing in the same shared world by probably partly influenced by where we're working, I suppose.
This is
So we have
fascinating.
actually
We need more
collaborated on
details.
a short story collection.
Mhm.
Yes, we will have a short story
Well,
collection.
it's yes.
Are we allowed to say anything? We're not, are we?
Yes, a collaboration. Oh, not specifically. We do actually have a publisher for this collection, and it's probably going to be out in the next year or so. But yeah, we just realised by reading each other's works that somehow we had got this shared world. It's slightly more optimistic, I think, to a certain extent than the world that I usually inhabit in my fiction. But it is also a world of imagining this world slightly to the side or slightly in the future.
Hmm.
And yeah,
Yes.
so I've got a new novella and hopefully a new story as well. Kat's got some new stories. It's very much environment inspired, as in what happens with our oceans and what's left behind and all that sort of thing. So yeah, it's very exciting. So without really discussing, let's do a short story collection and start writing those stories, we just by some natural thing wrote a group of stories that went together. And this publisher, who we will be naming in the future, we're not ready to do the big announcement yet, is really keen on helping us see it come to print. So it's very exciting. We're very excited.
But
Yeah,
real
we
quick, did
noted.
you say that again? Sorry, step on you, Cap. But did you mention that this also has to do with the workplace, or what connected that? So it was a coincidence, or is it just a subject matter that is in the air? I mean, when you're talking about environmental stuff, I interviewed Kat even back in the Sansar days about eco punk and cli-fi and stuff like that. So that obviously matters to both of you.
Everything I write tends to have an environmental aspect to it. And yes, Shyla, I am all about raising awareness, but I'm also just that's where I live in my head. I live in the near future because my PhD is on the intersection between science fiction and climate fiction. And 6.5 years of that made me understand just how precarious our world situation is right now. But without you, if you're going to write positive futures or try and raise awareness, you can't be didactic. You have to make it interesting, make it as fictional, well, not you have to really boost the narrative and add a lot of interesting detail because nobody wants to be yelled at or lectured at. And let's face it, that's what journalism's been trying to do for the past decades and what scientists are trying to do. And it isn't, it just, people feel bludgeoned by data. You need to make things engaging if people are going to plug in and care. But I think the connective tissue between Karen's work and my work is it's something about it is about objects, the way we both have a love for peculiar objects, and maybe
Mhm.
we are attracted to slightly different peculiar objects, but honestly both our homes are full of weird objects. And I go to Karen's place and she's got the most amazing collection of creepy, dusty, odd things all on these shelves. I want to do a whole photo essay just of what is lying around on Karen's shelves. She's got all this amazing kitchenware. She's just got such a great collection, and I've got a great collection. And we met through writing, and we're the same age, and we are compatible human beings. We get on. And I think the collection formed spontaneously out of just who we are and what we like. We never set out to put a collection together. Karen, I think, was the one who noticed we happened to be working in a similar vein. Like we'd just fallen into this near future world, and so we started trying to make it happen and found a publisher who really saw what we were doing and really responded to it. So it's a great project, but it's a natural evolution of who we are as people, I think.
In terms of, I have this in my run sheet for a little later, but let's address this right now because you mentioned it, with stories um, addressing climate crises issues, and hopefully activating people and making them active to do something in the physical world to prevent further chaos and to kind of reverse what we've done to this planet. Now, I personally completely agree, and I'm convinced that stories, and especially the written word in books, novels, short stories, whatever, can hold a deeper truth that sort of just binary facts and numbers are important, but they don't transport a deeper truth, and that goes for whatever the human condition entails. But I want to ask you guys straight out because the this movie Don't Look Up was extremely successful. If you haven't seen it, that's a movie by Adam McKay with Leonardo DiCaprio and lots of other people. And it's basically about a comet hurling to Earth, which is the metaphor for the climate crises. And it lampoons. It's a satire. It lampoons um, scientists, not so much scientists, the media, and how the media is just making everything a spectacle. Now, do you think that things like that, movies, books, let's throw everything in one pile, that they activate people who are otherwise not engaged to join a movement or to do something? Because I'll tell you right off the bat that I'm actually not convinced, especially with movies. But take it where you will.
Personally, I love.
I think that one, I haven't actually.
You go, Kaaron.
I was just going to say, just what your point of being didactic. I haven't actually seen that movie, but it feels to me as if it might have been a bit too bludgeoning with its point. We need a bit more subtlety, perhaps, like drawing people into actually caring about characters and caring what happens to them is really important, which is what Kat was saying. And that, well, I haven't actually seen that, but it does feel as if they were a little bit too obvious, perhaps.
Well,
I think things like that, the old, what was yeah, I think I'm just trying to think of who the cartoonist was. The English guy Raymond something. Where the
When the
wind
Wind
blows. He
Blows,
had a whole
Raymond
series of these
Briggs.
incredible. Yeah, yes, Raymond Briggs. Like you think you show anybody that book, anyone who's a climate change disbeliever or those sort of things, like just just a couple basically at the end of their lives, and the stresses and just the humanity, I think, is far more moving than anything that's a bigger picture. I think looking at the small picture and looking at an individual life rather than a bigger life sometimes is
I'm
more
putting this in
effective,
here in the
perhaps.
local chat. This is Raymond Briggs, When the Wind Blows. And I just want to add one more thing because I made the mistake that I hate when other people make. I just threw everything together. And Karen, thank you for parsing this out again, despite not having seen the movie. I think my main critique would be that this movie, very well intentioned, all these big actors, very well intentioned, is nonetheless a visual spectacle, and it's a satire, and satires are wonderful, but because the visual presentation is ultimately, I think, not the right vehicle to transport this and activate people who have not been interested in this in the beginning. As a matter of fact, when the director Adam McKay went on sort of a press junket, he gave an interview where he said, "I was surprised that people asked me more about like how Leonardo DiCaprio was on the set than about the issues that I tried to
Right.
transport in the
Which is
movie."
literally proving the value of that movie. Like,
Absolutely. And again, we don't want to like, you know, dunk on them. They all have their right intentions. But to me, when I read that, I was like, how can you be so naive? Because you obviously looked into them in the script of the movie. The story is really well done. You must have anticipated that we're so far down the rabbit hole in this spectacle thing that that people will be more interested what Leonardo DiCaprio eats in his trailer before the shoot than about the subject matter. That's literally what you're lampooning. But Karen made this point about, and I put this in the local chat, When the Wind Blows.
Yes.
This is a very different form. This is a graphic novel with simple, very um, stark images. You know, simple. They're complex in their simplicity, and they are just way more haunting than sort of this, fast moving satiric big Hollywood film can be, I think. And the same
well,
is true for books in general, I think.
look,
Yeah.
the thing is, When the Wind Blows is an anti-nuclear book. The climate change that's talking about is that, nuclear war. Uh, I think I love Don't Look Up. I think it's brilliant. I think it's absolutely the movie we needed right now. I agree with Karen. But I also think we need every weapon in our arsenal to try and fight the inevitability that we are hurtling towards at the moment. The
Mm.
latest IPCC report came out couple of days ago, and it used the term Atlas of Human Suffering. Like every time the IPCC does another report, it basically boils down to things are worse than we thought they were last time. We've just watched, the world is mobilizing to cut money off from Russia because of the invasion of the Ukraine.
Mhm.
Why aren't they mobilizing to cut money off from petrochemical
Yep, absolutely.
companies,
That's actually the
petroleum?
discussion. I had this discussion, and you know what? The consensus often, I mean, this is manufacturing consent too, when I and others bring up, you know what, this is now the time to discuss why the dependency on oil and all this kind of stuff has to do with these resource wars. And a lot of people say, well, now is not the time to discuss while the Ukrainians are suffering.
It
We
is
need to
absolutely the time.
absolutely. But yeah,
There's there's always
And
something
there
else
always will
happening,
be.
isn't there?
But I think so. I won't bang on about this too much, but the thing people do not understand is this is all very real, and our civilization is not going to survive in our
yes.
lifetimes, possibly. I know that sounds like a horrible and unbelievable thing to say. It doesn't seem like it can possibly be real, but we are living through this time now, and now is the time to step up. So I'll just go straight back to talking about writing because otherwise I'll bang on with a massive lecture
No, no,
and you'll
Kat,
have to
Kat,
cut me
let
off.
me jump in here. No,
So
no, I'm not cutting you
my
off, but
my my aim,
yeah.
no, 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 but it's not the point of this show.
No, that's what
So
I want
how
to
this
jump in
relates to
because I don't
writing
want to
is I
make
have
this about a movie. I want to actually ask you,
no, no, no,
I
no,
want
it's
to
not.
ask you if you think that writing actually can do what I've said. This is my personal opinion. What the movie can't do, because I'm actually convinced that your writing and Karen's writing and James Bradley's writing, for that matter, and others, actually that that can do what this movie can't.
It's all important. The movie is important as well because it will reach different people in different ways. What the movie has done is um, climate scientists and environmental activists have seen this movie and gone, "Thank you. This is what it feels
Mm,
like." It's a movie for us in terms of explaining just how ridiculous the situation we are in is. In that people aren't don't seem to be focused on this thing that will literally change everything for everyone forever. How
mm,
can this not? People have said, "Oh, the meteor. It wasn't a good analogy." It's the perfect analogy for me. But anyway, my aim as a writer now is to stop writing pointlessly dark futures
mm-hmm,
or miserably dark futures. I'm trying to write positive near future stories. And by that, I do not mean utopian stories. I mean presenting challenging environments where people step up and act out change or demand change, like the way communities um, come together, as communities always do in disasters, showcasing some of this behavior against challenging backdrops rather than just saying, oh, everyone's going to die and it'll be like Mad Max and it'll all be horrible. We
mm.
don't want to go down that road anymore because it's not helpful. It's almost like a
It's
form
not
of
helpful.
contempt pornography. It's not
Absolutely,
helping anyone.
I
And it's hard
completely
to
agree with
write
you.
these stories.
Mhm.
It is hard to write positive near future stories about integrating better technology, moving away from fossil fuels, but it can be done. And that's my personal challenge as a writer, is to step up and do the hard work. Because I don't know I don't know if I have any effect on anyone really. I will never know that. I know James Bradley does. I think he has a much wider reach because he's such a well-respected literary author in Australia. But we've all got to play our part, and this is my part. And the shop, the Green Shed, is playing its part by recycling stuff that would have gone to the tip. It's cutting consumption by encouraging people to pick up old stuff and run with it. And so many people do. We have yet so many young people coming into the shop and going, "Oh, this is great. I'm going to buy all my homewares from here rather than a department store." And every little thing helps. Everything helps in the fight for a better future.
Karen, I want to throw it to Karen. Karen, what do you think about writing positive stories where people come together and come together as a community to change things? Because while Kat was speaking, I also thought that sort of this disaster porn people talk about is, I completely agree. If it becomes sort of like a thing like, oh yeah, cool, like, give me more dystopian, give me more variation on dystopian outcomes. And it seems that we're so conditioned to wanting these stories, and they have an effect on us that we can't imagine a way out. And as Kat was speaking, I was also thinking what I often encounter is, and popular culture has a big role in this, I believe, and media, is that a lot of people that I encounter, they say, well, humans are basically bad, right? They're just mean spirited. They're mean, and that's why we're going down the drain and blah blah blah. But there's a lot of research, and there was a big show about the Neanderthals on from WNYC just a couple of weeks ago. It's actually not true. There's a lot of evidence of human beings at their core being actually good people and drawn to collaboration and drawn to working together. And now, of course, this is a huge discussion. Where was sort of the shift? Maybe the capitalist system pitting everybody against each other had something to do with it. I don't know. I'm not a social scientist. But anyway, long rambling here, Karen. How do you feel about positive stories and the power of stories in the written word specifically?
Well, I mean, this idea that where people are basically evil, we wouldn't be here. Like we are existing many thousands of years later because of collaboration, because we work together, because of community, because we care about each other. We would not actually be here if we hadn't been helping each other all along and being making small sacrifices to make sure that somebody else stays alive rather than dies.
Hmm.
So to me, that's still at the heart of when I write, because I'm still at heart a horror writer. So I'm always going to have nasty things happening to good and bad people. But I also, at the heart, and these stories that I've been writing with Kat, at the heart of that is still community. Like I really have a great belief that even if two or three people are in a room together, there's going to be some form of community happening, some desire to connect with people.
Mm.
In our circumstance here, just this group of people that we've got here, we're looking for connection. Like we're actually seeking connection. And it really is, that's what has kept us going for many thousands of generations, I guess.
Mm.
But yeah, people are assholes at the same time, that's for sure. People are
Well, people are complex. I mean, it's not black and white, but
people
the
are
but the thing,
greedy. People
yeah, but
But
that's the
greed,
that's the thing. I mean, where does I think the big discussion is where it's is it hardwired? It's almost like a version of nature versus nurture thing. In what way does the system that we have bought into, again, capitalism has corrupted us to the extent that we are greedy? Maybe we were not greedy, right? Maybe we wouldn't be greedy if we didn't have this system. I don't know.
well,
I think
I think there must be something genetic in greed as well, something biological in greed, because you want to be able to feed your family, and so there's that need to make sure you've got enough food and whatever to feed the people around you.
But there's a
So
lot.
I think
Mhm.
that greed, there's something about greed that has helped us stay alive as well. Like you want to eat, you got
I
to
think
eat
the
There,
word we're all fishing for
enough to. You've
here,
got to
we're
be
all
a little
fishing
bit
for a
greedy,
word,
eating enough to keep going.
patriarchy. We've
ah,
had 10,000 years of those systems, and
Ah,
we need to change
can
them.
we not do the?
yeah,
We need to move to trying other systems, because I think the greed comes from fear, and I think the situation we see ourselves in now globally has come from a particular way of organizing societies, and we need to broaden those ways.
that's exactly my point. Paradise here in the local chat says people just want more of whatever system they have. Paradise, I love you, but I fundamentally disagree. That's exactly my point. I believe that there are systems that we can imagine where that is not the case, and there is so much research about collaboration in earlier periods of human history. I'm posting this piece about Neanderthals from a radio station in New York. It's a fantastic, super important piece. The Neanderthals were very collaborative. They didn't just hit each other with the bones over the heads, and drag them into the cave and did whatever. Um, John says in the local chat, it reminds me of A Clockwork Orange and the experiment they tried on the main character, Alex. They tried to remove the bad part in him. This is great that you mentioned that. Clockwork Orange is a must read for everyone. Oh, thank you for mentioning it. Stranger basically here in the local chat summarized my rambling in one sentence. He said, could filling our minds with all this post apocalypse dystopia be creating a self fulfilling prophecy?
I think
Right.
so.
Yeah. Yep. That's a good point.
Well, certainly we look at the
It
way
limits our
cyberpunk.
imagination. Yep.
It does limit our imagination, but look at the way cyberpunk has influenced the way we project future cities. It's like that's sort of become the default, and it's like it's miserable, it's horrible, but that's what we all expect the future to be like from 50 years of literature and cinema.
Exactly. And I think I'm not sure. Somebody please verify this. If Cory Doctorow, I am now allowed to call him a friend of the show. Um, I don't know if that is from him where he says that cyberpunk was not an instruction manual. And by
Yeah,
a
I know that quote. Yeah.
right? But a lot of
Yeah.
techies, I mean, if we were sitting here with Mark Zuckerberg, he would look at like, yeah, Ready Player One is awesome. Every poor person has a VR headset and doesn't worry about anything else, right? I mean, these people, I mean, that's how they think.
Yeah.
Ah, I thought this was going to be an uplifting show. We're talking with Kat Sparks and Karen Warren, but she's a horror writer, and uh, Karen is, and Kat is a eco punkster or whatever you are.
I'm
Um,
probably a horror writer too, but I don't get that label.
would you like to have that label?
I think it's interesting that most of the fiction I've written so far in my life has been very dark, and I would class it as if you can call horror a tone, um, then I would say it's definitely horror. But I do not get included in that label, so I think yeah, I don't know. I'm happy with sci-fi writer, or
Speculative
I'm just happy
fiction,
with
maybe?
writer. I think
Yeah.
author.
I'm going to put this up here. Here's a little slide when Kat appeared in Sansa with her book Lotus Blue. And by the way, we have an assortment of books here on the table. There's an ecopunk anthology here that Kat edited with Liz Grisby. I hope
Grib.
Grib,
Grib.
sorry,
No one can pronounce Liz's name.
Grib.
Grib.
Here in the back, you can see the Sansa avatar of Kat looks exactly like the Second Life avatar. She just has a different T-shirt. And here is a screenshot of Karen appearing with the folks from the Body Shocks anthology, which is all horror. Now, our two guests are very accomplished. I think I mentioned this before, but I'd like to mention this again because it's important. Uh, that they are very prolific. They write a lot. Kat also edits stuff, I believe, and I have a collage here of Kat's books, including a magazine that you edit, the Agog
Oh,
magazine.
a goog. Look, I haven't been an editor for a few years now. I'm more of a visual artist at the moment, but I
hmm
did
With your
do my
dolls. Let's
part.
remind folks, you have creepy dolls in
Creepy
the
doll. It's not
garage.
all about the dolls, but I did edit an anthology series quite a while ago now, the Agog series, but really that we are going back quite a way. At the moment, I'm more of a yeah, I'm a doll person. I'm a bird person. I'm just a standard artistic weirdo at the moment.
Shyla put together this collage because I just also love these. I always
Okay.
love titles. Sorry, cover art, and there's some terrific cover art. Sorry, Karen was jumping in. Did I hear Karen say something?
That's how Kat and I actually met via her being the editor of Agog. I sent her a story that she bought. From the story, she imagined me to
Yeah,
look very differently
let
to
me
how I
tell this
look.
one, right?
But yeah, we've been
Yes,
friends ever
please.
since. I sent her this.
So, so which
Okay.
one were you? You were Terrific Tales, I think, or were you Karen? So that's all my covered art there, except for Lotus Blue and
Oh,
Loosed Upon the World. But anyway, so my partner and I had started a GOG press, and we got this. It's so long ago, 2002, and I think Kaaron was in 2003, that people were posting in stories. We didn't even have email submissions back then. So I started the anthology series because it was hard for Australians to get speculative fiction published overseas, because you had to send these stupid little reply coupons, and everything was by post. So I put out a call, and I got a story from Kaaron, who I'd never met, and it was called Bone Dog. And
Hmm.
I read the opening line of para of Bone Dog, and I knew two things instantly from one paragraph. One, I wanted to publish the story, and two, I never wanted to meet the author. And I had this view of Kaaron as being this. She would be this pale, skinny goth chick with Cleopatra hair, and I can pretty much quote the opening still. I may get a couple of words wrong, but let's see. It was the porn industry. Models don't usually get to choose the location of photo shoots. Fat Slits is a little different from other magazines. Some of us just can't get too far from home. Now
Little
that
did
is
you,
horror.
yeah, that
That
is
is
horror.
horror.
Little did you know that Karen, in fact, was not a skinny goth chick, but sort of a human-sized mouse in a late gray latex suit with,
Exactly. And so when
yeah,
we did meet, and it was like, you do not look like what you write like. Like you're too normal. You're like me. Like you're like, and we are literally like a couple of months apart in age. Like we are the same in so many ways. So it's just, but this writing, and that's the thing about Karen's work that's so amazing. It
Yes.
is so dark in such an original way. And she is not like that. She is a very non-dark person, a very friendly person, and a very community-based person. Like Karen is the living embodiment of how people should move within communities to make the world a better place. That is how Karen lives her life. And but the fiction, I couldn't even read her first novel, Slights. It was so horrible. I gave up a third of the way through, not because it wasn't well written. It's brilliantly written, but
yeah, slides.
the protagonist was so horrible. I didn't want to spend any more time with her ever. And I've still got the bookmark in my copy where I left that book. I'll never know how it ends.
Slides is absolutely amazing. Actually, I'm not quite done yet. I'm completely behind because I got absorbed into another book, but that's the one that uh, I bought for the last time, and I'm reading this week. Here's a bunch of titles from Karen here. Into Bones Like Oil. I read that really quickly. Amazing texture, Karen. The way you describe this boarding house, and just over pages, just sort of describe the griminess and in enormous detail, and nothing happens except for describing this house and the people who live there and the breakfast that they have and the routine, and always the breakfast, the breakfast, the breakfast. It's quite remarkable. um I was gonna actually, because my, yeah, Karen,
Well,
go ahead.
thank
Sorry, we
you.
have this little delay. People, please bear with us. Karen, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry about that. Breakfast and how it can anchor, how it just anchored these people, and there wasn't much else that really anchored any of them. So it was really important to have that routine and that steadiness and something they could rely on. And of course, until they can't rely on it anymore.
So that's what
But
people
yeah,
should
thank you
pick
for
up
that.
right
The
now.
setting was really, really definitely important in that place. Yeah.
People need to pick up Karen's Into Bones Like All, and people need to pick up Kat's Dark Harvest, which is a short story collection. Now, because I'm throwing out my entire run sheet, we haven't even read yet. We have also reading to do, but um, because Kat now inspired me to throw up my entire rundown of this program, let's go to this following segment. This segment is called I Dare to Ask You. Now, this is a new segment that I devised. There's a little game here. Now, what is a question that each of you have never asked your colleague about writing, life, creativity, whatever, something that you may not have dared? I figured it's just us here in a virtual world. This might be a nice intimate setting where you might want to ask this question. I give you a little time to think about this. Each one of you think of a question that you have not asked that may have been in the back of your mind about your friend and colleague here.
Drax, I don't think you quite understand how much time Kat and I have spent together,
I would
or
not.
how many very late nights we've spent
We
sitting up.
we we
Yeah,
had
yeah, and
drinks.
also
I
with the
can't even
Drinks.
think.
We
booze,
I literally, we know each other so well.
also with the alcohol that you steal
Yeah,
from
well,
the
that's
green
right. We're
shed. I
talking like
understand.
4
Mhm.
a.m.
we're really good friends, and I would just ask
we
anything, and I'm pretty sure I have already asked everything. But
Okay, then we can lie. Then you just lie and just
yeah.
ask something.
Look, it's a great idea, Drax, but I think for us, oh my God, I can't even imagine. Like I know where she went. Like we know so much about each other. We honestly spend a lot of time talking crap. We've been on lots of road trips together. We've shared hotel rooms all over the world. Um,
yes,
I don't know. I actually can't think of like we know everything about each other's families. It's what it really is a very it's a sitting here. I know I've always known we've got a close friendship, but it really does bring it home about just how well we know each other and understand each other too. I think. So
All
it's
yeah,
right.
I
I
think it's
think
a
so.
great idea, Drax, for people
No,
who don't
that's
know each
fine.
other as well as we do.
This idea is out the window. So let's move right along to the next segment.
No, it's a great
I
idea.
always have two ideas, Karen. Look, the other idea is a segment that is called Drex uh, asks the big questions. Now, Ruby, our stage manager and set designer, just brought up a backdrop. She's just killing us. We need to move it behind us. There's a big backdrop, and if you look behind you, you'll
Oh,
see it. The
cute.
audience sees it. Drax asks the big questions. Now, I'm throwing my paper here with the dare to ask in the bin. That idea is dead. It will not be resurrected, reanimated. Drax asks the big questions. This is a segment I have discovered BookTube. I don't know if you guys are aware that there are book reviews programs on YouTube, and it's called BookTube. Now, I've become obsessed recently with BookTube and with literary booktubers who um, review literary books and very seldomly genre books, but also genre books. And these guys have, and I stole a bunch of questions. Some of them are by a channel called Leaf by Leaf. Maybe Shyla can put that into the thing. These are great channels. Leaf by Leaf, Travel Through Stories, Better Than Food is another one about books. And they have these questions. So I'm gonna ask each of you a question. People are saying the voice breaks. I hope the voice is good. Now, first question. What is your favorite way to find new books?
Recommendation. And that could be by review or by a person reckoning I would like to read something.
Hmm.
So probably the best book I read last year was The Animals in This Country by Laura Jean McKay.
Hmm.
And that was one of my fellow Green Shed shop workers, Rachel, said, "Hey, you should read this book because I really need someone to talk to about this book, and I think it's one for you." And I went, "Okay." Like I know she likes a little bit of sci-fi, but not in the way that I do as much, I think. And I read it, and it's, oh my goodness, this was the best book ever. And
Mm.
so then we could talk about it. So, and it's the book's done very well as well. But it's like that's a great way if someone says, "I really connect you with this book in my head." That's a good
A
thing.
person that knows you, that knows that this is a book that you might enjoy. And is that person or a good friend is also sometimes a person who recommends something that might be challenging to you, right? I mean, that those are frankly to me the best friends that know like, this is something that might challenge you and brings you out of your comfort zone. How about
Yeah.
that kind of stuff? Oops.
Yeah, definitely. Same with Kat, recommendations. Also podcasts, especially if I'm being interviewed for a podcast, I'll go back and listen to some of the past episodes and people they're speaking to. If they're interesting, I'll seek out their work. So I
Yep,
think, yeah,
ditto.
interviews, listening to an author talk about their work is a really good way. So this sort of thing, like you just get to know the person, and so not them saying buy my book, but trying to understand their motivations and
Hmm.
inspirations and things is something that really makes me pick a book up. So that's where
Definitely.
the booktube I think works. Like it's the review part of it, but then it's also the authors talking about their work part of it as well.
Can that make something some very rarely what happened to me was when I was enjoying a book, and I met the author, or not met, I saw the author in an interview. It actually, uh, I didn't like the book anymore, not because the author had questionable views, right? I mean, this is
Right.
a different story. We discussed
Yes.
this like a couple of weeks ago, how people can sort of like, can you separate art from the artist? I mean, that old debate. I mean, that's a really interesting debate that never goes old to me, and it changes. But I don't mean people with objectionable views, but people who where you sort of imagine them, you like the book so much, you imagine them as some genius, and then they just say like really mundane stuff, and you go like, what? You thought this is some sort of wizard, right? I don't know, that happens to me every once in a while.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, this
Yeah.
book's
Ruby says never meet your
never
idols.
meet your
Yeah,
idols, although
exactly.
yeah, I think that's probably coined for a reason. Although I have got to meet a couple of mine and been pleasantly surprised. So look, I'm up for reading anything that sounds like it's up my alley, I guess. And like Karen, the podcast is where I get a lot of information, and I like listening to literary podcasts that I listen to. I go very broad spectrum. I don't just listen to speculative fiction stuff. And anyone who is interesting is worth reading. If someone is passionate about any topic at all
Hmm.
and they can convey that clearly, then their work is worth checking out.
Hmm. Um,
I think that passion is really important, actually. I totally agree with that. And obsessions as well. We just on my little podcast, Let the Cat In, we just had a discussion about obsessions and the importance of being obsessed by something. Because if you're not, then it's very hard to find that passion in it.
Oh, that is such a great podcast.
And yes,
Drax, you should
what
promote
is the
this
name
one.
of the
Let the
podcast?
Cat
Yes,
In.
Let the
Let
Cat
the Cat
In.
In. And it's Kaaron, Aaron, and Joseph. So that's
Hmm.
three Australian authors, and they just have a fantastic chemistry. It's a funny podcast, as like you just laugh a lot all the way through it, but it's just also very interesting. Um, seriously, like especially Aaron's touches. Like Aaron is just he's a Aaron Dries. He's an Australian horror author, but
Hmm.
I actually think his personal life stories are his best stories.
Wow, this is
And
cool.
he's
So
no
Karen,
matter what
Aaron,
oh,
and
it's
topic,
so funny. And
no
he has his,
matter what topic, he has got some hilarious little thing that happened to him, and it's like, "No way," and they're just
he
hilarious.
really does
He's
anything.
but again, it's that
And it's
chemistry.
it's object inspired. So our guests come in. Yes. And our guest will come in with an object that either has meant something to them or that they want to invent a story about the objects that inspire story, either personal stories or invented stories. So that's really fun. Just some of the things that people have come in and shown us are just incredible.
It's one of those
We love it.
podcasts
We
that
just had Ellen Datlow's the one we just had Ellen Datlow come in, and she started off telling us a story about this piece of art that she had, but we ended up hearing about the time she went to visit people in jail and do talks to people in jail.
oh,
So
wow.
it's that's kind of a meandering conversation sometimes. Yeah, no,
that's
it's
what I'm
so
known for.
good.
Meandering
You
It's just
guys
the
are
most
fascinating.
wonderful
you guys are
conversation.
encroaching on my territory. I'm known for meandering and rambling. This is very. I feel very competitive about this. I've been trying to ramble and meander more. We talked about the shed and household items on a book program, and now Karen tells me that they're doing similar things on a podcast. Uh, uh, a quick follow-up to this question is, did you ever, because when I looked at this question, I sometimes go down a rabbit hole of an author that I like, and I try to find out what that author read. Has that happened to you? I mean, this can take weeks and months of your lifespan. So I find an author that I really like, and then I find out how that author started writing or what inspired that author to get where they are. But sometimes that stuff may actually not be that good. But I sometimes become so obsessive that I have to go through everything.
Well, I mean, writing is alchemy.
Yeah, no, I've done that. I've definitely done that.
You go, Karen.
You go, Kat.
I
No,
go.
you
All
go.
right.
You go.
I the al- writing is alchemy. It's making gold out of base material, and every author has their own way of doing this, and some are better at it than others, obviously, which is how you find your favorite authors. So it's not the material itself; it's how it's rendered. So it's not that I wouldn't be interested in where the author was getting their information, because of course there are some fabulous source places, but the source story isn't the interesting part of writing for me.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's what came out of it.
I don't mean the source story if it's based on a real story. I mean the material that
Well,
shaped
the
that
influence.
author. Yeah, the influencer.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
the influence. The
Hmm.
influence itself will always be taken in a different. Every author will have a different way of expressing that. I mean, I guess some stories, some origin stories, as in events or inspirations, are in themselves so intrinsically fascinating that you
Hmm.
can't really, like, you can't not be interested, like the objects in the shop. It's like they're all fascinating, or so many of them are fascinating, and but it's what do you do with it? How do you
Right.
run with it? And that's when, like, for example, like um David Mitchell is one of my favorite writers, and
Oh,
looking
yes.
at all the source material for that must have been for the bone clocks. There's so many fascinating stories, like anchorites. I'd never heard of anchorites before that book, and that's an amazing part of history that is just so bizarre and so fascinating and unbelievable. You cannot believe that people actually voluntarily got walled up in women got walled up in buildings to be closer to God. Like, that's just nut stuff. So obviously he would have read about that and rendered it into his fiction. But I'm very interested in reading more about that because it's such a crazy idea. So
Now you started
I
with the
think I'm off
bone
on a
clocks. I
big
need to.
rabbit hole here myself.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You're dragging me into it, Kat, because the bone clocks is absolutely nuts. David Mitchell, my friends. Oh my God. Yes, Cloud Atlas, blah blah blah. Good, but frankly, bone clocks. Oh my God. But we're talking about you guys, not David Mitchell. Although
But oh,
David
can I
Mitchell.
just add one more thing?
Yes, yes.
The one time I've ever wanted to punch Karen in the nose was over bone clocks.
Oh,
Absolutely.
that was my next
Yes.
question.
No.
Did you guys ever fight and
I
punch
don't
each
like it.
other in the
I don't
nose
like it.
over
I
books?
love
Go ahead.
I wanted to
Woohoo.
punch her in the nose. I totally did.
Yeah, no, I don't like it. I love Cloud Atlas and I've loved other stuff, but that one I found very
Hmm.
tedious.
Like,
Hmm.
seriously, what's going on there?
Anyway, let's move on.
Can we
We're
do
gonna do a
virtual
separate
punching?
show where we're gonna parse that out in detail. Um, I can detect a little bit of a preference of that is different here. Kat likes maybe the sprawling big maximalist novels, and Karen likes it a little tighter.
No, I love that stuff.
No?
I love that stuff, but I just found the voices too much the same. I just found the voice was meant to be very different. Anyway, I don't want. Let's talk about something else. I don't want to talk about
Okay,
that.
next question. Books you love most
Boring.
books books you love most people misunderstand.
Hmm. Gosh, that's a on the
Hmm.
spot one, isn't it?
I'm
Hmm.
going to say something here to you guys can
Yes.
think a little bit about this. I'm obviously obsessed with David Foster Wallace's Infinite Jest. Infinite Jest is highly regarded, but it's also misunderstood, not by everyone, but by a substantial a number of people as sort of a book that pretentious 25-year-olds put in the shelf, pretend they read to impress their girlfriends. And that annoys everyone who loves David Foster Wallace's Infinite Jest and thinks that this 1996 book is really fundamentally the best analysis of modern American life, the hollowness, the pursuit of happiness, the melancholy that is inherent in today's life, and it annoys me that Infinite Jest is so misunderstood by people who maybe read one interview with the author, who may have read the assertion that again it's sort of this big tome that where 22-year-old college students try to impress their girlfriends. So that yes, that will be my take.
I have not read.
Well, that's a tricky question.
Of course.
I was thinking, I've got just one thing popped into my head. Now, one of my favorite books of all time is Rebecca, Daphne du Maurier's Rebecca, that I talk about often.
Hmm.
But one thing I've found I read it every couple of years at least. On recent readings, I've come to this understanding that the main character, Maxim, who when I was a young person, I was utterly in love with, and I thought he was the most magnificent male on the planet. But I've come to recognise him as an abusive person who's actually
Mm.
pretty horrible. So I think that's a misunderstanding about Rebecca, which is kind of seen as a love story to a certain extent. I think it does get misunderstood. It's actually a horror story, big time, and that Maxim is actually an abusive person who is not often. Yeah, we don't often talk about that, but I actually think he's pretty bad.
This is
I
actually an
So there you go.
interesting
I thought
straight
of
up
variation of the
one.
agree.
question. We can modify this question into maybe a book that you love that you misunderstood at some point, where then you come to years later or whatever, you come to like, oh my God, I never understood this, and this is either bad or good.
I can't think of
Yeah.
anything.
Well, yeah, and I'm far on more recent readings. I'm far more on Rebecca's side than I ever was before. Yeah, but Mandalay does haunt me too. And what happened there, and what happened to Rebecca, and what sort of constraint she was under, and what an amazing person Rebecca was, and yet she was completely constrained by this abusive husband, Maxim.
Mm.
So there.
Rebecca, we should read it here at the book club. One more question here.
Oh,
Which language would you like
it's
to
incredible.
speak? Which is the language that you would love to be able to speak to read books in their original language?
I've never thought of that ever.
Oh,
It's never popped into my head.
German, obviously.
Of course, Heinrich Böll, Max Frisch,
Um,
Günter Grass, Peter Handke. I understand.
Uh,
Yes. So and to go back to Sturm again, I'd love to be able to read that in the original and see what the
the
lady,
lady,
what her
the
translation
lady.
was
How
like.
rude is that? Like,
The
oh, the
lady,
past really is another country.
no name.
Yes, that's just disgraceful.
And actually, it wasn't even the
A
lady; it was a
lady, a
lady,
lady.
Wait,
translated
what are you
by
guys
a
talking about?
lady.
We're going
Yeah,
back to Sturms.
Ah,
that book I
yeah.
told you, the 1792 book. It was translated by a lady. And she must have been a brilliant lady. She's obviously speaks 2 languages
Yes, I thought she
and had
deserved a
the
name.
time and but she's called a lady. She should have a
Yes, yes.
name.
Yeah, you would think. You would think.
That'll be one of our that'll be our next story, is the story of a lady.
A
May-
lady.
Maybe
Yes,
that
just,
was her name.
A
I
lady.
don't think so. I think that was just I
I
think that's
don't think so.
we're getting back to that patriarchy word again, aren't we? Moving right along.
The patriarchy is worse
Yes.
than capitalism, but they're all, I guess,
It's all part of the same.
intertwined. Yeah, it's a chicken and egg issue with
It
those
is
two
a
things.
chicken and egg issue, but we need to move on to different birds and different animals.
This is what I wanted to ask you earlier, Kat, because you were saying, you're an artist, and your days of editing that we referenced are long gone. What is the most important type of expression to you where you express yourself the most? I think is it maybe photography and arranging things in a frame and composing them that way more than actually writing?
No, not at all. When I do photography, I'm not expressing myself, I'm capturing something else, I think. Oh, actually, with the birds, I'm capturing, like the bird does all the work. I'm just, getting the technology together. Perhaps, oh no, perhaps with my when I like to photograph walls. So there's a particular type of wall. It's a wall which has had advertising or artwork or who knows what plastered on it, and it's then entropy has kicked in and weather has changed the image.
Right.
Maybe there's layers and layers of posters that have so you can see other bits coming through. So you end up with a really very abstract piece of art, and so I notice these and I photograph them. So that might be more of an expression of myself, but I do think myself is best expressed through my fiction writing. Um, and I think so. I guess with any art, there's selection involved. What you are showing is you are choosing, so you are shaping the narrative in that way.
Mm.
Writing is the hardest thing I do. I'm much I find the photography for photographing producing good images easier to do, but then I've been doing that since I was 15. So I've more skill in that area, perhaps. Every sentence is hard work for me, always has been, and I think it always will be.
This is interesting. Do you feel then I guess the photography is also maybe recharging the batteries, but to both of you, do you feel pressure? I talked with this with Shyla also in the pre-production meeting. Is there a type of pressure? I feel this pressure with myself to have a certain output. It's weird. I mean, there is a societal pressure, and the hamster wheel of content production. This is a word I hate. I hate the word content. Um, but how do you feel about this? Is this a pressure and anxiety that you feel you make yourself, that you feel I need to put something out, or this is month 5 of me not putting something out. I need to do that. Is that a voice that you have analyzed that comes from an intrinsic place, or is this your mother or your editor or society or the book industry, or don't you have that at all? And you're just like, you know what? I'm completely fine with not publishing anything for, I don't know, 6 months or whatever. Or you look at James Bradley and you go like, oh my God, look at him.
Well, I'm really writing to a lot
Sorry,
of
Karen, I was
deadlines.
talking over you.
I'm writing to deadlines mostly these days, projects and deadlines, and so I've always got things. I've got edits to do. I've got new stories to write. I've got novel to finalize and do final edits for. So I've got like commercial reasons to continue. But yeah, I definitely do. You don't ever really go on a holiday as a writer, I don't think. Because even when you're on a holiday, you're looking for inspiration and you're thinking about your characters and really your brain, my brain anyway, I don't know how other people's brains operate. My brain is never really in off mode, it's always in on mode, which can be a bit exhausting,
Mhm.
but it's also fascinating and I wouldn't really have it in any other way.
I
I'm
agree
exact.
with the no holiday thing. I agree with the fact that writers never retire or go on holiday.
Mm.
I used to feel a lot of pressure I wanted to have, I guess I was aiming to have some sort of a career as a writer. And I don't know that there are such things anymore. Everything changed for me a few years ago. I won't go into a whole bunch of details, but um, I, I want to be part of the conversation, but I don't think about career anymore.
Mhm.
I practice crop rotation with my creative output. So when writing drives me nuts, I'll pick up the camera or I'll, do some computer graphics or whatever. As long I need to work all the time, I need to make stuff all the time, or I'm just not happy. So as long as I'm producing something creative, I'm happy. The easiest thing for me to do is the birds because they're right outside my window, literally looking in, waiting for me to get out there. So, there's always going to be a bird. There'll always be something creative in my day because if nothing else, there'll be some bird or kangaroo pictures or something. But I have to force myself to write these days. I don't get as many cool invitations as Kaaron does. If I did get them, I think I get some, but not like Kaaron is just flat out all the time with invited stuff or commissioned stuff. Um, I have to chase my gigs, and I'm not as obsessed with. I used to want to be somebody as a writer, and I've come to the conclusion that I'm already as much of anyone as I'm ever going to be in terms of my ego. My ego is sort of on the back burner at the moment with this stuff. I don't know why, and I would like to get it back, but it's just. I honestly think that I suffer from climate grief, and it's a little hard to care as much about being an author as it
Being
used to be.
and having right, and putting the career and the importance of that career at the center.
I do a lot of activism, and I do as much work behind the scenes activism as I do with anything else. So I pour a lot of hours into stuff related to activism.
And that is really awesome. But see, this is interesting. I think you're touching on something that is difficult for people who are creative and then because of that creative profession are in the public eye to some extent. I struggle with that where I feel I need to put stuff out because otherwise people out there feel that I don't do anything. But of course, I know that I'm doing crazy amounts of stuff and you are doing this, but if it's not related to the perception of who you are out there, a writer, a videographer, a musician, um, the world is so sort of focused on these sort of narrow definitions, I feel, that when content outside or activities outside of this, the way we brand ourselves or other people brand us, then it just doesn't gel together and people perceive like, oh, this guy's not doing anything, which
It's a
is
noisy,
absurd.
noisy world, and you've got
Yeah.
to fight for your space. You have to, if you want to have some space, because there are so many writers, so many creatives, and we are all globally connected. And you've really got to make a noise if you want people to notice you and remember you, because you stop moving, you stop producing, and you just fall off the shelf.
And this is
It
true
just
for everybody in Hollywood, but it's very
But
unhealthy
you and
and you're trapped in this thing. I mean, I know a lot of people who realize how unhealthy this is, but they
but
feel they need to keep this going. They need to keep themselves inside that hamster wheel and add to the noise.
I don't feel at all like I'm not on the hamster wheel. I do it because I love it, and I wouldn't do it otherwise.
You're on the
I know it's
mouse
hard
wheel.
work, and yes, it is very noisy out there, but I think it's more important than ever to have your I think it's more important than ever to try and keep your individual voice and keep the power of your voice in there, and have something to say on the page, which is what
hell
Kat
yeah.
has always done with her fiction, but even more so recently. Have something to say on the page. Don't just write for the sake of writing. Have something important, even if
Absolutely.
it's a small level of importance.
Absolutely.
Make sure you have an
Integrity.
individual voice. Don't try and be like anybody else. Integrity and individuality of voice, obsession and passion, and that's what's important. Like I don't like the whole shout, look at me thing, but I do love to try and create fiction that nobody else can create, that only I can create, and that's what's important to me.
Hmm.
It's our legacy. It's what we leave behind. It's what we give to the world. It's the way we are part of the world.
Hmm.
And it's important. Integrity is everything to me.
Yes.
I have zero interest in, if I have nothing else to say, if we reach the point where I have nothing to say, then I'm not going to write another word. Because I don't need to be anything. I'm already something myself.
This is really, really well said. I mean, this is something that I couldn't agree more. This is a mantra to live by. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah.
we didn't get to any reading, and I have to wrap the show within the next 5 minutes. That's fine. I think we had a wonderful conversation. I think um, people here in the audience enjoyed this very much. I hope you guys did. Um, I'm
Yes. Always great talking to you, Drax.
I'm bringing up these
That's been
2 book
great.
stands because, Kat's latest, I mean, I recommend everything. I recommend Lotus Blue, but I also recommend, Dark Harvest, which is here on the book stand here in front of us, and Karen was about to read the, unpublished, work, The Emporium, where I mocked up a title, which I'm very proud of. It looks very punk.
Yeah, look at
Man,
that.
God, I
I love that.
should be hired by somebody to
So
design stuff.
that's a novella that's going to appear in our that's the novella that's going to appear in our joint collection.
Mhm.
Yes. So
And very much inspired by the things that people collect, the things that are things that nobody want anymore, but somebody else will want. It's set in a old shopping mall or a shopping centre. Kind of a love story to the shopping centre that I grew up near, which is called Shopping Town. And it was quite a magical place when you're a kid and when you're a teenager. It was the sort of place where you hung out there and said you were going shopping, but you would just be hanging out with your friends and that sort of thing. So it's a bit of a love story to shopping town and what happens to buildings when they're no longer used for the things they were originally planned to be used for.
You know, I was with my son, my 18-year-old, in a shopping mall today, and I told him that if the FBI or some secret agency wants to extract information from me, don't put me into Guantanamo, put me into a shopping mall because I can't stand it. It is
Right.
really the most terrible place
Yes.
to be, but I completely understand what you're saying. So I'm very much looking forward to this novella and also your joint work. Very exciting. Jessica in the local chat says, I have Dark Harvest and I love it. Dark Harvest is really a powerful collection. I mean, powerful stories. Really
thank
wonderful.
you, Jessica. Thanks very much, Jessica, and thank you, Drax.
And again, Kat, thank you for sharing your uh statement on the urgency of the climate work. I was gonna, as you were saying, I also wanted to say that what is very important, we're doing this stuff, when we write, we have a global community here in Second Life. This is also a global community, which is wonderful, people from all over the world. But what really also matters is that maybe these communities can sort of take this energy from these types of meetings and then go into their local communities, and that's really important. A lot of people in media, they I feel they don't really focus on the local hard work anymore. I mean, this is a complex discussion and we're out of time, but there's not a lot of glamour in working locally, but it's probably the most important thing that we can do, right? I mean, in terms of
Absolutely,
climate.
absolutely. With climate action, what I would say to everyone is do something. Not everybody is an activist. Not everybody wants to stand on the road holding a sign. There will be something you can do to be part of fighting for the future. Find it and do it. Step up in whatever way you can that is meaningful to you.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. And it's how we treat each other as well in our small environment.
Absolutely.
Just think about how you're good to the people who are around you. Just be kind to the people who are as close to you. Look after them as much as you can. And the environment is the same
Absolutely.
thing. Look after what's
It
close
is
to
the
you if you
same.
can't do anything in the bigger picture.
You don't know that about
Definitely.
me, Karen.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm torturing my dog
You can
every
see why
day.
we're friends.
You're assuming that I'm nice to the people around me.
Well, look, if you're taking your son to the mall because he needs to go to the mall, well, no, I wasn't talking about you actually. You'd be sort of the exception to the rule, I think.
Sorry, I have mild narcissism disorder. I always think you're talking about me, Karen, but that's okay. Um, I I have to wrap the show. Thank you, audience. This is really awesome, and thank you on the YouTube. Want to thank Kitten Duo, who has put a super chat in the chat, and thank you, Kitten, is big supporter of this program. Kitten is also a member of the Draxtor YouTube channel. She just upgraded from a Drax Bro to Drax Fan. Now there are 3 levels. Talking about narcissism,
Goodness.
there are 3 levels of membership on the Draxter
Talking about
channel.
narcissism, goodness me.
You want to become a Drax Pro? I'll give you a deal, Karen. There's also Drax Stan, which is the highest level. But anyways, thank you, Kat and Karen. It's so
Can I be a Drax no?
yes.
Ooh.
We'll see. I'll add some more levels.
Yes. Yes. I'm sure there's a level for all of us.
I want to say that it's I don't say it
Yes.
often enough, but it's so inspiring to have writers here again. I mean, to me as a reader, you're basically my my drug pushers. You're supplying me with the drugs that I need to survive, and I thank you for that. The inspiration and the language and the words, and it's just amazing. Uh, the book club, I'm going to run through the credits here real quick. The book club happens every Wednesday. Also appreciate that you guys come on locally very early in the day in Australia. Um, book club normally 12 o'clock every Wednesday, and sometimes we shift it around a little bit. slbookclub@draxtor.com is the email where you can send you know critique or praise, or also recommend authors that you like and that you want us to pursue. The show is produced by Isabel Sharon, Shyla the Super Gecko, myself. Location manager, master builder is Ruby Geek. The avatars are made by Ruby, research by Shyla. Karen's avatar is made by Bespoke Caravan, specifically Mud from Bespoke, the lead designer. Custom job, absolutely nuts. Um, but well, some people are a little bit crazy, and they deserve an avatar that embodies that. I'm speculating. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. The SF Book Club is sponsored by Bad Unicorn, Blueberry Headhunters Islands, Creatures, Crescendo Landscapes Unlimited, Linden Lab, Nomad, Rag, VR Salt and Pepper, Slink, Skin Stealer Syndrome, The Black Forest, What Next, and please find the links to the calendar scattered around the island. We have 3 islands. Please don't forget to tip our volunteer staff. There's a little tip dragon here on the chair, on the fold-out chair, and those tips are for our wonderful volunteer staff. Spread the word to book lovers all over the grid. And next week we have the last guest of the. Let me look at that image. Where do I have it? We have a author who is a very prominent Second Life resident, um, and he is also a published author. He's also a filmmaker. Huckleberry Hacks. People know him, Huckleberry Hacks. I'm sorry, and he will be here next Wednesday at 12 o'clock, right here on the Second Life Book Club. There was a couple more comments here in the local chat. Paradise says, "Thank you, Drex. Love your thoughts, Kat and Karen. Look forward to knowing you better through your writing and podcast." Jessica says, "Thanks, Kat, and thanks for coming, Shyla." One last comment on April 2nd, my documentary premieres. So Huckleberry is the last guest, and then we have 3 weeks of free for all. If you in the audience, or if you're watching this on YouTube and you want to guest host the show, please contact me and we'll talk about it. That's it. Thank you, Kat. Thank you, Karen. And good night. Good morning.
Good morning. Time for
Thank
my
you.
coffee.
Thank you so much for having us. Great chat. Thank you. Thanks, audience. Time for me to
Yes.
get ready to go. Thank you, everyone. It's been wonderful to see you, and thanks for all your comments and input, and thanks for just hanging out with us.
Ditto, definitely. Thanks, Drax. Thanks, audience.